morning guys, it's Geekonomics here once again, and just want to finish off today my current all-time favourite subject, which is the whole notion of indifference curves, budget lines, and the analysis with regard to the diagrams in the early chapter of the A2 textbook. So this is the final one in the series, certainly the final one that I'll be uploading with regard to this particular topic for a while. So we're going to be looking at a price reduction this time. However, noting, ladies and gentlemen, the key thing here is that the good or service, well, it's actually a good here because we're talking cola and apples, the good whose price is being reduced, so we're saying that the price of apples is being reduced, that good is an inferior good. If you've watched my previous video with regard to a price increase and inferior goods, you'll know that we went through just what exactly we mean by this term, inferior good. So let me just run through that once again with you. For an inferior good, when your income rises, the demand for that particular good will fall for reasons stated previously. When the income falls, the demand for that particular good, the inferior good, will rise. Now, we are not talking necessarily here about incomes, but we are talking about price. And therefore, we can make certain assertions about what would happen to the income and hence to the demand when price changes. In this instance, we're talking about a price reduction. So think about that. If price falls, the value of your real income will go up. So we're on the top line here. And what will happen to the demand for the inferior good? The demand for the inferior good will fall. And one final point before we start to draw the diagram. Remember, we do not take into consideration the income effect on our diagram until we get, let me just start that again. We do not take into account the inferiority of this particular good, the fact that it is an inferior good. We don't take account of that until we get to the point where we are looking at the income effect. So let's draw the diagram. We have a price reduction. So as you know, the pivot will be pivoting around this point here because the price of apples in this instance are falling. So it's a pivot rather than a shift. We can buy more apples, and so the pivot shifts us out that way. So we're going from budget line 1 to budget line 2. So in effect, think about it, in effect your real income has gone up because the price of one of the goods that you were buying has fallen. So let's draw on an initial start point. So as you will be well aware, we need an initial indifference curve, like so, which we call indifference curve 1, and this is our start point A. So let's deal with the substitution effect before we get to the income effect. What would happen when the price of apples falls? So we've got cola and apples. Well, a rational consumer, and remember this whole notion of rationality is very important in this theory, but the rational consumer would say to themselves, okay, apples are cheaper, so I could potentially buy more apples, buy less cola, but still achieve the same level of utility as shown by any point, and remember it is any point in this particular indifference curve IC1, because the consumer is indifferent between any point along it, as it yields the same utility or satisfaction. So we need to consider the new price ratio, shown by the new budget line BL2, and we're going to draw that so that it's tangential to IC1. So as you'll know from previous videos, this is called the shadow budget line, BL star, and this is showing us, at the new price ratio, the level of income which would be necessary to put us onto the original level of utility or satisfaction, shown at point A. So in this instance, actually a move here to point C would, at the new price ratio, yield the same utility as point A. So that, ladies and gentlemen, from A to C, that is our positive substitution effect. It's positive because it's moving us in this direction. Now then, we come to the crucial analysis in this particular question. We know that apples are inferior, and so we know that this movement from A to C actually might not happen because this particular individual, even though apples are an inferior good, so income's gone up, as you can see, therefore the demand for apples in this instance are going to fall. The income effect will be negative. And just before we put on our final finish point equilibrium B, it's going to be negative. So therefore we're obviously going to have to be moving in this direction. And so I'm going to put a new finish point here, point B. So that's IC2. So this movement from C to B represents the negative income effect, and it's negative because it's starting to move us, and it's moving us back in this direction. So we're consuming, as you can see here, we're consuming less apples, and we're actually ending up consuming a little bit more cola, even though it's more expensive. We're actually choosing to buy the more expensive good cola rather than the now relatively cheaper apples, which is the reason why we end up back at point B. Now in your textbook it talks about the fact that, it talks about the strength of the income effect over the substitution effect. So we can see a strong substitution effect here and a relatively strong negative income effect, but that negative income effect is not sufficient to outweigh the positive substitution effect, which is the reason why we end up somewhere between points A and C. This point B is, as you can see, it's somewhere between those two. If the negative income effect due to this inferiority was so strong that it did outweigh the substitution effect, then possibly we could end up way up here at point B. Sorry, at point B prime, let's call it, where we've shifted even to the left of point A. That would be the negative income effect outweighing this very strong positive substitution effect. But that's not the case when we go from A to B. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for today, and that's it on indifference curves and budget lines. I hope that you're well into the next chapters of the text on competition. One of my favourite topics, I have to say, perfect competition, monopoly. I really do love all that stuff. So if you've any questions on anything at all like that, do send me a message. Keep viewing, keep subscribing, and see you next time.